And for more, Dr. Darcy Smith is talking to us from New York City. She's a clinical social worker, also owner of the blog AskDrDarcy.com. Dr. Darcy, very good to see you. The pharmaceutical industry is supposed to be creating drugs, obviously, to make people feel better, but they seem to be getting away with quite a bit of illegal activity. As a doctor, how do you react to this?
To the extent that humans or animals legitimately need a drug to treat a specific disorder, I think drugs are wonderful. Medications are fabulous. Where it becomes a little murky, I think, is when we use these drugs or when the pharmaceutical companies are marketing these drugs to a broader population. So they're no longer specifically targeting the marginal population that has a disorder, and they're promoting a drug to promote well-being, so to speak.
But how are they getting away with some of these sort of illegal activities? Because we've really seen this escalation of criminal and other illegal activity in the past several years. I mean, why is there this shift?
I'm not exactly sure why they're getting away with it. I know that these pharmaceutical companies are paying an enormous amount of money towards lobbyists, and that money is sort of viciously cycled back out to them in the profits that they're earning.
Well, speaking of lobbyists, this industry directly financed the FDA through cash payouts. Just last year, I want to mention this, between $700 million and $800 million in cash went directly from the drug industry to the FDA. So, who's looking out for the best interest of your average American?
I think the problem is this. The problem is that when the average American family sits down after their meal to watch TV, they really trust the commercials that they're seeing on television. And they trust that the networks or the government have already screened out these drug companies and confirmed that whatever it is they're promoting, that those claims are legitimate.
Well, speaking of, watching TV, this is your health. This isn't just swindling you out of money from investments, and yet this issue is not really brought to light. So like you said, these folks sit down, they have dinner, they watch TV, they watch these pharmaceutical ads, but they don't hear the other side of it, sort of questioning why do you need this drug, and could this drug possibly have the reverse effects?
That's why dialogues like this are so imperative, because the average person, I don't think the masses are aware of this at all. And I think it's so imperative that people be educated about the exploitation. And these companies are so incredibly powerful. They have so much money at their disposal. And clearly the fines that are being imposed as a result of these violations are not a great enough deterrent.
So what's it going to take to stop these practices? Because you make a great point. I mean, $6 billion to pay out is chump change for some of these companies who make profits of tens of billions of dollars a year. So, $6 billion over 6 years, that's nothing for them.
Absolutely, and I suspect that these companies actually budget for these fines, when they're working out their numbers for the year. So the bottom line is this. I mean, if the behavior smells criminal, then perhaps the consequences should match that.
So is there anything that, your average American, again, can do to sort of stop these practices? I mean, who should be held accountable here? Because, like we said, it's not just the pharmaceutical industry we're looking at. We're also looking at the FDA and a lot of lawmakers on the Hill that sometimes we find out are in bed with a lot of these pharmaceutical companies.
Well, that's a real big problem. I mean, and obviously people need to reach out to their local congressmen, and they need to demand that there be greater checks and balances on what's going on with these pharmaceutical companies. The bottom line is this. If pharmaceutical companies were held to the same standards that a normal citizen were held to, in other words, if I go out and I harm somebody, I'm going to be held criminally accountable for my behavior. And until they are, I don't see it changing.
Absolutely, and not one executive from any of these pharmaceutical companies that have been sued has actually seen any jail time. So that's another very interesting point to bring up. Dr. Darcy Smith, thanks so much for your time today. And of course, we'll continue to bring this issue to light.